So lots of changes going on. Going forward, Dante, what does the future of financial advice look like in Australia?
Yeah, great question, and one would be great to play the tape back, I suppose, by many when they watch this. But hard to know, really, to be very frank, obviously. But what I would say, there is a clear direction in terms of where things are going, but there's also a need for us to intervene to ensure that direction doesn't get sidetracked. Or go off the rails. And what I mean by that is there's a clear direction with professionalism and with the changes in the sector that we are not only with these enhanced changes around professional standards, really tightening up on these issues of conflicted remuneration, that business models are changing, and so therefore the financial planning businesses exist today very much won't look the same, or the way they look like today won't look the same in the next 3 to 4 years. And in fact are changing already. So those businesses as we see them today are very different to what they were 3 or 4 years ago. So there is very much this clear direction of change where the predominant and only revenue source coming into a financial planning business is that from the client alone. So no other forms of remuneration. So that's the first thing we're seeing. So very much this clear payment of professional services. So financial advisors are providing a professional service which clients will pay for. They'll pay for their time and their expertise. And this separation of product and advice, which is something FPA has been advocating for some time, I think will continue to be challenged and pushed. The FPA is calling for that separation of product and advice to actually be done so via legislative reform. So at the moment, our members are licensed to give financial product advice. We're really wanting to challenge that and separate that out and say they should be licensed to give financial advice, which encompasses a whole range of things, which does also potentially include product, but not exclusively product. So I think there's a push there. But of course, what I mean by this going off the rails potentially is, of course, a lot of the reform that's occurred to date, a lot of the additional legislation and regulation that's been included, some necessary, some, in our opinion, inefficient and duplicate, has created cost and inefficiencies in the system. And so if we're not careful, all we're going to do is make a financial advice unaffordable for many Australians. And in fact, arguably that is already the case today, but we'll only continue to make it unaffordable and continue to prohibit many Australians who need financial advice from accessing that. So we have to be very careful there. And we're very much about ensuring that what the future does also need to include is a real cleanup of the regulations and ensure that it's as efficient as it can be, it's effective as it can be, and remove all this unnecessary duplication in the system, which we believe exists. Also, we wanted to really push, we think the future also exists where financial advice fees will actually be tax deductible to the consumer. And so the clients will actually be able to access financial advice and get a deduction for that advice, because we think it's of national importance that people get access to personal financial advice. And we think most Australians, if not all Australians, will benefit from that, and actually in turn will benefit the country and the national economy. And obviously, ultimately, the cost to the age pension and the cost to the public sector in terms of having more people accessing financial advice. So we think there's a national return, a national dividend if more Australians can access advice. And so we are advocating for that acceptability of advice as one of those areas. And then I think finally, the third change in terms of the future direction is that we'll see more integration and use of technology as part of the advice process than we're currently seeing now. It's been quite evident for us during the COVID environment that advisors were forced to utilize technology in order to stay engaged with their clients and also to access new clients. And many of them have been able, by being forced to do so, have actually really seen the benefits that this technology can provide them for their business and also for their clients. And give you a great story. I had an advisor tell me about the opportunity that he now sees in his business about, traditionally being, in theory anyway, because we always knew this intellectually that this wasn't a restriction, but he was confined to the fact that his clients had to be geographically located to his business. The reality is now with technology, that's not the case, and he can have clients all across Australia, and if not, maybe even across the world. And that's a great example of how technology will empower more financial planning businesses and also reach more consumers. But ultimately, working with individual human advisors to better be more efficient in engaging with clients.